let's do this video to talk about some stuff that I have been processing and internalizing. Trying to see if I can find me a good little spot. Because I think I might want to sit down. I don't know if y'all going to be able to hear me. Oh, I'm trying to find a little place out here in the yard. Because, I might go to screaming and hollering. And I don't want to wake my uncle up. Child, would you be quiet over there, baby? Why you gonna bark through the whole video? You ain't gonna let me talk. So yeah, I've been watching a couple of different things, and I wanted to speak out about these things and um just how the content that I have been reviewing, how it's been affecting me. See if I can find a place to sit down. I don't know, because I don't want them to come outside while I'm talking. Let me see if I can set this up on the TV. Because I do want to stand up while I'm talking. Hold on, let me see if I can get this to stand up. If I can find a place to get this to stand up. Oh, you won't break my branch. I'm telling you. Yeah, so I need to get this situated. So we gonna leave the branch here for just a little canvas, right? Like a little one with nature, like say. So I watched the situation that happened with the um the black guy who was murdered by the 5 cops in Memphis. And if I'm honest with you, like a lot of people are all torn up about this. And I don't know, I guess I done got to the point to where I'm kind of numb, you know. I still feel, I still hurt. I guess it's because I lost someone who was close to me a month ago who was, for all intents and purposes, a black man. Then I lost somebody, my husband, um, who was a black man. And, you know, people don't care. You gotta get beat to death, for the world that we live in to really care about your life. You gotta have like a horrific story to draw emotion out of people in this day and age. Like, you gotta go through something that's so grim and something that's so horrific to get anybody attention, to get emotions out of people, to get people to feel anything. And so, there's no justification for what the police officers did, obviously. But a lot of people, like, I follow this guy. His name is Anton, and he has like this show called the Anton Millionaire Show. And he was talking about how he wanted to see a lot of different people rallying. Like, he wanted to see these different groups, like everybody who came out for Black Lives Matter when the stuff happened with George Floyd. Like, he want to see, this tremendous amount of outrage behind this act. He wants the same energy. And my thing is, if you actually get the same energy, if you actually get people who are invested in doing what needs to be done to right this wrong, you're calling for the end of patriarchy, because this is some brotherhood. It's some brotherhood stuff. This is big brothers watching. We got each other back in the brotherhood. That's what this is. So, another, black man calling for his mama. George Floyd was calling for his mama. And I think it's some symbolism in that, some deeper symbolism, a greater spiritual symbolism that we seem to get, that it's time for us to start being whole. It's time for us to start making the connection and the correlation between why things are so off, why things are so one-sided, why things are so lopsided, why things are so imbalanced, because we have been playing this game that puts down a part of ourselves and uplifts another part of ourselves. Whether, we're shaming that Caucasian that's in our DNA, or we shaming that negritude that's in our DNA, or we're shaming that masculine that's in our DNA, or we're shaming that feminine that's in our DNA. There's this game that we've been playing, this chess game, and I'm trying to get into chess, and for some reason I'm struggling, because I used to play chess back in the day. Like, one of my mentors was teaching me, one of my partners who was an older guy, he was teaching me how to play chess. And I know that it makes the game exciting, but I'm also watching this TV show called The Owl House. And they're in the third season, and so they're getting ready to play a new game because the old game is whack. So, I think it's all a game. It's going to continue to be a game, but I think it's time to play a new game. I just think it's time to play a new game. And so, I'm in favor of the ancestors, wiping all of this away, and, starting a new game, a new game where we're more whole, a new game where we're more complete, a little game where we're more realized. Hey, how you doing, baby? A game where we're more self-realized and more whole and more complete. So, yeah, my heart goes out to, the brother or the male or the being who had to suffer that brutality from, police officers who just sad. It's just sad. My heart goes out to the family. My heart goes out. I don't really have no energy for that, because a lot of people, have not had energy for, our plight, our cause. And when I say that, I don't just speak for the trans community. I don't just speak for gay people. I don't just speak for black people, but I speak for addicts. I speak for people who struggle with addiction. I speak for people who are homeless. I speak for people who are living below the poverty line. Like, I speak for so many communities when I say y'all haven't really had no energy for our plight, unless, you know what I'm saying, you saw a way that you could capitalize off of it. And then you have your pick-me's and your tokens that you want to use to be the face of it, and then you give them a whole lot of coin to sell out the rest of the demographic that they supposed to be representing. So I'm just really not here for that. Like I said, I'm ready to play a new game. I'm ready to play a different game, because at the end of the day, I feel like it's all a game. Um, Even this idea that, as horrible as murder is, and as sad as murder is, and as tragic as it is not the end. We go on to another part of the journey. We live again. We have another life. We have another opportunity. We have souls. We are immortal. And a lot of times, you know, healing comes in that death. Healing comes in being free from that body and having an opportunity to live again. And so I have another perspective on death. I don't think that death is the end. I think that death is a doorway. And so I just, hope and pray that, the young being who we saw on this plane during this time as Tyron, As a 29-year-old black man, I hope that he or that entity is born into a life where they have a different outcome that doesn't end so tragically, and that they could know a little bit more joy, you know, in the next experience, you know. And that's what I would pray for anybody, even my enemy, you know, even a person that I don't get along with, because at the end of the day, you know, I see my enemy how I see my enemy. I see the enemy different than other people see the enemy. I see the enemy as, you know, we all have ancestors that live in us, that move through us, that work through us. You know, thousands of ancestors, because we are ancient beings. You know, that's why they making movies like Avatar and all this. You know, we are old beings, and we have ancestors that are rooting for us, and ancestors who are not rooting for us. Just like in our biological family, we have siblings who love us and celebrate us, and we have siblings that can't stand us. In our chosen family, we have siblings who are rooting for us, and we have siblings that are not rooting for us. And so the enemy is anyone who's not rooting for me. The enemy is anyone who's not rooting for the work that I'm doing. The enemy is anyone who stands in opposition of the goals that I have set and the plan that I have set. It's not some man with horns and a pitchfork and a tail. It's not, you know, a Lucifer, so to speak. It's not that. It's any ancestor that stands in opposition of my mission. You are the enemy. And some of my ancestors that stand in opposition, they alive, and some of them is in the spirit world. Some of them rooting for me, some of them saying we ready for change, we ready for something different, we ready to see something new, and some of them saying I like things the way they are. I want to hold on to the way things are. I'm scared of the way. I don't want things to change. Just like with Martin Luther King, people were saying leave them white people alone. Why you gotta do this? Let's keep things the way they are. We don't want no more problems. You know, you always gonna have people that are in opposition of what you're trying to do. My enemy is not a man-made devil. My enemy is anyone who is in opposition of the work that I've been called to do. And that doesn't mean that I don't love you, because you might have been meant to be my enemy in this life. I just hope that you're not meant to be my enemy for eternity. I hope that you have your awakening and you realize. I hope that we can have seasons where we're not at odds. I hope that this is a dance. I hope that this is you know how after you play a football game, and you know, and you are any type of sport, after it's over with, you congratulate the winner. I hope that I hope that we can be those types of beings. You know, I hope that we could play a game where altruism is not rare, where we are willing to make sacrifices for each other because we know that we're immortal. The thing that stood out for me most in Jesus' story is that if we really think about it, Jesus was one of the most well documented suicides, because Jesus was this being who had all power in his hands, but chose to suffer and die on a cross, knew that he was going to die on the cross, and still chose to suffer and die on the cross. So Jesus, Yahshua, was altruistic, chose to die, committed suicide, basically, because he did not have to die. If he was indeed God, embodied in person, God in the flesh, he did not have to die. So he committed suicide. He committed suicide so that he could realize his greatest self, so that he could come back as his greatest self. So when they talk about suicide, I have a different opinion of it because I think Jesus already knew who he was. Jesus was already performing miracles. Jesus was already doing great things. And so that death was the last test. It was altruism for society. And if I could have painted that picture differently, the day that Jesus took his life, what would have been different from me? What should have been different about that story is that when Jesus took his life, everybody who was following him and was loyal to him, they all should have went with him. And they could have created a whole nother world because energy doesn't die, it's just transferred. So instead of letting Jesus get up on that cross by himself and die by himself, all of them who say they believed in him and said they loved him, they should have went with him. Because why would you want to live in a world without this man that you love so much? Without this man that you believe in so much? Without this man who's helped you to wake up? Without this being, this entity, this idea that has helped you to wake up? Why would you allow this man to die and go on to another part of the journey? You believed that he was going somewhere better. You had to. You had to. So why wouldn't you believe that for yourself? So that's what I always struggle with in the Christian narrative of the story about Jesus, is that no one else was willing, no other people were willing to go with him into the unknown. That's the part that's off for me as a person who is a thinker. Now, I was watching a video that Dr. Umar did about the trans community, about the queer community, about the LGBT community. And he kept calling this trans masculine person queen and sister. And he was saying that it was a form of respect. Let me tell you something. If someone does not want to be called something, it is not respect, it is violence. If someone does not want to be called something, I don't care if your intentions are to be respectful. If they do not want to be called that thing that you are calling them, it is violence. And sometimes I choose violence. But you better believe it is a response to what I feel is violence. Amen, a woman. So sometimes I choose to eat a greasy pork chop. Sometimes I choose to respond violently. But it is always in response to violence. You know, if you say something that I feel like triggered me or harmed me, like I said in the video the other day, it's a lot of black people who are very comfortable with the term crackhead. It's a lot of black people who are very comfortable with terms like meth head and coke head and just all of these, saying things like that. But then you want somebody to call you by your proper pronouns. You don't want white people to call you a nigger. You don't want to be body shamed. You want body positive language. But it's okay for you to call people crackheads, cokeheads, and meth heads because massa done gave you permission. Massa done told you it was okay to put down these people because these people are struggling with something different than you, but 9 times out of 10 are still struggling with many of the same things that you are still struggling with. And so, it ain't nothing I could do about that. You just gonna have to cut your volume up or put it on the speaker because I'm not about to yell. But so that's an issue for me. That's a real true issue for me, that so many of our, so many black people, people who look like this. Well, not even like this, because some of y'all light skinned. But you love using and you jokingly, you know, toss out words like crackhead and cokehead and I've been guilty of it, you know, and it's a conditioning. It's going along with society. It's going along with everybody else. It's going along with everybody else's thought process. I'm not doing that with y'all no more. I'm not doing that with y'all. That shit harmful. That stuff is harmful. Then when somebody respond and call you something disrespectful, you won't go ham because it's been justified for you to be disrespectful by society as a whole. You want respect, but you also want to fit in at the same time. No, boo. Pick a struggle. Either you for the resistance or you not. You can't pick the things. You can't condemn certain things. Be want to condemn this and want to put this. See, let me tell you something. There's when it comes to condemnation for me, I try not to condemn because I don't even want to understand it. Um, I don't want to understand why grown people choose to sleep with animals. You know, like to really, really like sleep with, you know, like animals, and to sleep with children. I ain't really trying to do a deep dive into that because I feel like in order to do a deep dive into that, you need some experience, and I'm not interested in experience. So if I'm not willing to do a deep dive into it, murdering people, killing people, brutally chopping people up like Jeffrey Dahmer did, I'm not interested in doing a deep dive into it. So I really can't condemn it because I haven't done the research. I haven't done enough research. I'm not willing to become that thing, although I'm sure that it's probably somewhere stashed in my DNA. Sure. Sure, all of those things are probably stashed in my DNA. Hell, I think it's stashed in all of our DNA, if you ask me. But I'm not gonna belabor that topic because I don't want to be too long on this video. But I do want to say this: I had a chance to see the brothers the Bruh movie. Y'all know the movie Bruh. Yeah, I had a chance to see the Bruh movie and with what's her Miss Lawrence and T.S. Madison was in it and a whole bunch of queer people. And it took me a long time to watch the movie because I didn't know what to expect. I'm gonna be honest. You know, I've seen some gay porn, and I know it gets really rough and aggressive. So I really honestly didn't know what to expect. But I have to say that the movie, all in all, was pretty good. Um, I saw that it grossed 14 like 14 million in the box office, but the budget for the movie was actually 22 million. So they paid out more than they made in the box office. Originally the box office was like 11 something million, but it did increase, and I'm sure that it's gonna make a lot more money as it streams, because that's where the coin gonna come in. And that's a lot, most of America, most of society in general is closet queens. Most of y'all in the closet, so y'all gonna stream the hell out of it. So it's probably gonna make its money back in streaming, but just not a lot of people were probably confident or comfortable with going to the movie, coming out to the movie and watching it because it was extremely queer. It was extremely queer, and the only thing that I would struggle with, I think that T.S. Madison, I'm starting to really love her character in all of these shows that she's in. Because I got a chance to see her in Hush. I got a chance to see the whole season. She did really good with her character. You know, she was a boss. You know, like through the whole character, through the whole series. Like I actually lived for her character. I'm not gonna hate. I ain't got no hate on it. I love her character. She was relentless. She didn't back down. She was wise. She was strong. She had business savvy. She could be shrewd when she needed to be. She was a little mild gangster with it. Like so. I kind of lived for her character. Um, and in this particular, um, in this particular movie, I liked her role. I liked her character. My favorite part was when Miss Lawrence's character, I think her name is Wanda in the movie. Miss Lawrence's character finally had an authentic opinion of her own, because T.S. Madison's character was reading her at first, saying, you don't never really have a thought of your own. But then when Miss Lawrence's character finally expressed an original thought, it was one of how she had been holding in this violence. Like if I was to erupt, I'd kill all y'all. And T.S. Madison was just sitting there looking like it was priceless. Like I had to rewind that a couple of times. Ooh-wee. And then it was another part of the film where this Chinese, this Asiatic gay person or queer person was gonna fund, was gonna fund um, the museum. And when they was getting ready to fund the museum, when they was getting ready to leave, he said, "I'm getting ready to have a pool party, and both of you are too old to be in the pool. Please leave." Like it was just so sincere. Like, you're too old. Please go. Like, I'm gonna give you the money, but get your old asses about. And they wasn't even really that old. Like, it was just the sarcasm and the just pay it no mind, like, kind of attitude that he had. Like, I lived for the comedy, the style of comedy. It was very good. It was all through the movie. Like, I lived for the comedy. Um, I thought that the relationship between the two white guys, between the two Caucasian males, it was endearing. At first it was kind of rough. You know, you had to work through the stereotypes. Like, they had to take you through the stereotypes. But by the end of the film, you actually understood why they were meant to be together. So the writers did a good job, and you saw um, how they brought out things in each other that helped them to be more whole. Like, one partner was struggling with following their dreams, which was to make chocolate, and they were afraid of how that was going to make them look. And then the other one could sing and was struggling with, singing in front of people. And so they encouraged each other, they nurtured each other, they were a good support system for each other, and they helped each other to be more whole. And so I really, really, really enjoyed how the writers showed that dynamic between two men who would appear to be very masculine and manly. And so I liked it. That I liked it, having, like, seeing that, and it wasn't just a stereotype from beginning to end. Like, it showed layers, and it gave them volume. Like, it was a really, it turned out like I couldn't watch it all at one time. Like, I had to, take it in doses. So I watched like half of it one day, and then watched the other half of it the next day, because it was a lot. Um, Especially the parts where it was like, um, teaching children, um, teaching children about queers in our heritage or our history, teaching, young children. Like, now, since we're trying to get more, education, or more information is being exchanged about, about, you know, ancestors who look like this, with negritude, like we're having that conversation. And so right now, while we're having that conversation, we're trying to push conversations about, you know, queer people who have lived since the beginning of time. And I just feel like it's the categorizing for me. It's the labeling. It's the need to just create labels to divide. Sometimes when you're trying to get a story told, it's not always important to label it as much as it is to speak about the life of the human being. So that's where I kind of like you can express characteristics, you can talk about features, you can talk about personality, you can talk about body types. Like there are ways to convey and express who this person was without having to just drop them into a tribe that they may or may not resonate with. They may or may not have resonated with in their life. Like when we try to tell stories about queer history or we try to tell stories about black history, we don't know how these people identified in their time period. We don't know, like when we hear stories about Abraham Lincoln and we try to make Abraham Lincoln gay, or we try to make people who had same sex relationships something 2,000 years ago, hundreds of years ago, they probably just considered themselves free. They probably just considered themselves human beings. Like even with, black people, when black people were the original people or sovereign people, and it was known, because now they're still the majority. We've always, people of color, darker hued people have always been a majority. We don't really realize that in America, but when we thought that we were pretty much everybody was like us, was there a need to name us? And was it about segregating us by name? And so, yeah, I feel like we get a little bit obsessed with labels. There's an obsession with labels. There's an obsession with categorizing everything. In the society that we live in today, it's made it almost mandatory to categorize everything and to label everything. And I just feel like we get a little bit too caught up in that. Which is why I'm glad that my book is really different. I just, I gotta finish it. Like, literally. It's just little bitty things, but I've been going through a lot, like, mentally. Like, I just finished writing a grant yesterday. Um, and now I need to go ahead and look at this book, but I'm really just trying to do self care right now. I'm trying to take care of myself, because through the fire, through the limit, through the wall. But just one night with you, I gladly risk it all. Through the fire, through the limit, come what may. Yes, honey, because I've been going through the fire, baby. It's been through the fire. Right down through the wall. Anyway, let me get off this live because I know people have been saying that I was low and fuzzy, and y'all will be all right. But I love you. Thank you so much for joining me. I needed to vent, get this out of me, feel better now. Down with the now that I say Kua keep spinning and turning in Gani Iyango Kulukalo, which means I am a child of God Goddess. And if I am, you know you are. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Peace. Ashe. Blessed be, and so it is. And may the force be with you. Down.